Alright, YouTube, Hillary Clinton has gone from cankles to cackles. That is, she's now a complete and utter lunatic. Her statements regarding wanting to literally start a war with Russia or China over, internet or data breaches, it shows it. She's nuts. There's no other way to put it. I don't even think, by the way, I think that was spontaneous. I don't think she was just posturing when she said that. I don't think she was just shilling the people in the room because they were veterans or whatever. I don't think so. I think that's really what she wants to do. She's a warmonger. She's the most pro-war candidate we've seen since the days of, I can't remember whether it was Hubert Humphrey or who it was who wanted to do preemptive nuclear strikes on other countries to just be done with this. Just fucking, we'll get rid of our nukes by using our nukes. This is probably the most insane proposal from a mainstream candidate since then. Way back in, I believe it was like the early 60s or thereabouts. So Hillary Clinton has lost it. She's lost her marbles. If you're voting for this woman, I hope you understand, you're not voting for a peacenik, hippie, leftist, liberal, oh, we're going to keep corporations accountable individual. You're voting for someone who is funded by corporations in Wall Street, who apparently is quite friendly towards George W. I mean, she glowingly praises him at every step. It's fantastic to see her doing this. It makes no sense to me until you realize who funds these two idiots. And who is saying, yeah, we're going to look into a military response over a non-military matter of data intrusion into private corporations or government servers. Now, she knows as well as anyone the damage that can be done to a political campaign with data leaks. Because she suffered from that. But I'm not seeing how it warrants a military response against what would probably be a nuclear state. I'm not sure that that's a great idea, but she apparently thinks it is. And I will note one thing. You're seeing Trump make the swing towards talking about specific issues. Hillary, meanwhile, is doing the opposite. What's she done since Reno? What new proposal has she made? She says, oh yeah, I've got an immigration plan. Oh, can we see your immigration plan? No, I'm not going to talk about it. I'd rather talk about the alt-right or trolling or something. Is this woman nuts? I've never seen a campaign quite so poorly run. Now, I believe Trump will win the election. It's not certain. 1 in 100 still happens 1 in 100 times. That's true. I mean, he could completely stall out at the first debate and look like a complete laughingstock and fall 10 points overnight. So you can't count that out. It may not be likely, but the possibility still exists. You can't predict that far into the future when you're dealing with such a convoluted thing as U.S. politics. So if someone's telling you, oh, I know who will win right now, there's a 50-50 chance that they're right, and they don't actually know, they're just guessing. What I would say is, though, not just the debates, but if you look at the way the campaigns are being run, Trump is now pulling in record amounts of money from small donations. That's helping. He has begun to run ads. It's evened the odds. He's focusing on some of the important swing states. He knows the red states will go for him. He knows the severely blue states will go for Clinton. Wisconsin is now in play. Now, this is a state I didn't expect to be in play. I expected the possibility of Michigan, but I didn't expect that Wisconsin could come into play. The fact that it is, and the fact that Trump now appears to be leading in New Hampshire and Virginia, important states as well as Florida, gives him an advantage. I don't care what Nate Silver's algorithms tell him. Nate Silver still has not apparently come around to the realization that we are undergoing a generational paradigm shift. If you look back in history, the figures that lead one of these shifts invariably win. Look at Theodore Roosevelt with the progressive movement, off the end of the Gilded Age. He was very, very popular, remembered as a great president. And then, of course, he quit, he went off to explore the Amazon, got sick, came back, found that Taft wasn't doing the right job, so he tried to run again, but the Republicans wouldn't let him run, so he ran as a bull moose, crushing Taft in the process. Actually very funny. You look at the early Civil Rights era, when the Republican Party and the Democratic Party especially, under JFK, became the party of social reform and hard left economics. At the time, the end of the Ike administration, the beginning of JFK. The government intervention, we got to spend on space, we got to spend on the military, we got to build more missiles, but we've also got to have social reform because there are people suffering in the country. That continued to work very well until the time of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter's ultimate proposals and plans were not bad. I don't even look at him as a poor president. I look at him as an okay president, and certainly a good guy. If I could drink with any of the presidents, it'd be Jimmy Carter, even though I've basically given up drinking now. Other than Red Bull. Always will drink that, even if I stroke out and die. Not a bad person, but Reagan comes along, completely reframes the debate, and there comes the paradigm shift. Reagan was 10 points behind until a few weeks before voting when Jimmy Carter collapsed. And then he won. And he's partially undeservedly remembered as a great president. I remember, well, I don't remember him, but I would class him as an okay president. Nothing wrong with him, but he did usher in the age of neocons and neolibs, because in order to react to Reaganism with Herbert Walker, even as unpopular as he was, what did the Democrats do? They brought in Bubba Bill, head neolib himself. They had to become a Reaganite party. And what people don't understand is that the Democratic Party right now is being led by someone who is essentially a female Democratic Ronald Reagan without his charisma and without his common sense, where it showed through. Sometimes he didn't show common sense, he showed that he was demented. That's why I believe she'll lose. If the Republicans had done what they did last time, this paradigm shift started in 2012. Ron Paul did very well for a reason. He dragged new blood into the Republican Party, and the Republicans rejected his idea of libertarian reform within the Republican movement. They rejected him, shafted him. They didn't just say, no, you're not the nominee, in a fair process, which is what they should have done if they wanted to win. They shafted him completely. They bussed delegates for Ron Paul around the stadium, wouldn't let him sit. They rushed past the proceedings to jerry-rig Romney into the position. They ignored thousands and thousands of people that were physically there. They ignored a good 10 million people in the country, including many independents who had swung over, and myself included, to primary for Ron Paul. They ignored us. So what they do, they got Romney. Romney was a corporatist. The problem being the Republicans became at a loss to challenge the Democrats because they had been outmaneuvered by strategies built by Bill Clinton. On the identity politics, neolib versus neocon trade, where the neolibs and the neocons are identical. On fiscal issues, they're basically the same. They're both pro-war, they're both for interventionism, they both want to keep a high corporate tax rate, they both want massive government abuse, a surveillance state, they want a police state, they really want to fuck around in foreign theaters. So in order to differentiate themselves from one another, they have to use identity politics. People don't seem to realize that the role of identity politics, as opposed to we're Americans, we believe in liberty, stop slavery. We're Americans, we believe in liberty, stop segregation, versus, well, we should stay segregated because white America. We should keep slaves because states' rights. Those issues boiled down to a core of people who said, well, we're Americans, we believe in freedom and liberty, and we oppose your oppression of other people. Since the Reagan into Bill Clinton era, that hasn't happened. Instead, it began to boil down to the government would pit one group of Americans against the other, neither side being in tandem with liberty. And you see that changing now. Before, during that period, Reagan, Herbert Walker, Bill Clinton, into W. Bush, and into Obama. That very long paradigm, by the way, historically speaking. It began to sort of fall apart at the seams 4 years ago. It didn't quite fall apart enough. Now it's completely shattered. Another reason I believe Trump has a huge advantage, because he's shifting the paradigm himself right now. Before it was, oh, this group of people is taking your jobs. That group of people is criminal. This policy will hurt such and such conglomerate of individuals within the country. Trump has rephrased it. He's bringing back that pre-neocon neolib ethos of America First, which is what it was about to begin with. This is not a racist anthem. This is what all of the country echoed when the civil rights era was around. People were echoing, in America there is liberty. In America there is freedom. Why should this group of people not be able to enjoy that? We're Americans. We believe in liberty. We believe in freedom and justice and so forth. So it didn't make sense. To those people that oppose segregation, it didn't make sense that there'd be segregation. What's the fucking purpose? It's not separate but equal. And even if it were, why be separate at all? Who gives a god fuck? People should, we're all Americans. Trump is returning that ethos. His very slogan is built, although it is a Reagan slogan, which it is, that was literally a Reagan slogan, he couldn't be further from the identity politics of the post-Reagan era. Now, Reagan wasn't really using the identity politics. He built more the economic core of it. That's why he enjoyed prosperity, whereas Herbert Walker fell apart, because the Democrats, to react to the building of this corporate machine, they began using identity politics. They outflanked the Republicans. And as for W happened to have weak opponents. That's why he won. Al Gore was a weak, boring man. Bush seemed more likable. And he only barely squeaked by anyway. In the second election, John Kerry was even more boring than Gore was. Totally ineffective, and he got swift-voted, which didn't help. And at the same time, sad for John Kerry, but we were in a war and people didn't want to switch commanders-in-chief yet, because in 2004, Bush hadn't fucked things up with Katrina, and there weren't thousands and thousands of dead Americans yet. So people didn't quite know what they were going to get. Not that Kerry would have changed anything. He was a neolib. So he was the same as W anyway. He would do the same things. It's not like the death toll would have been less because we happened to go with the Democrat. Trump is the first candidate in many election cycles, though, to return to the America versus not America argument, as opposed to the one group of Americans versus another argument. Why do you think he went with all lives matter? When asked, why do you think he would do it? Because he believes it. Because that's sort of an integral part of how he's campaigning. Now, you don't have to believe that he's honest. You can think that he's pandering every time that he speaks. But as far as the campaign strategy, as far as what he's saying, he's getting into the specifics now. And you can look for him, I believe, in the lead up to the first debate and between debates and probably at the debates, to call upon Americans to solidify. He'll say, we're in this together. I'm running to be your president. I want to represent all of you, not just a handful of people. I don't represent corporate interests. Hillary's taking corporate cash. I don't even like hedge funds. She's taking hedge fund cash. He'll browbeat her on this. He's going to do the same thing that he did to his opponents one by one in the Republican primaries. He's going to link her to big money. Say, yeah, she's a career politician. First lady, two-term senator, secretary of state, none of which she did well, by the way, voted for Iraq, takes money from corporations and big banks. I'm not doing anything. I've never been in politics before. And that's how he'll win, I believe. Now, again, it's not certain, but it's likely. The trajectory of the race is currently in Trump's favor. There is a very narrow gap now between these two candidates. Hillary Clinton is supposedly the strongest Democrat to run since, who fucking knows, JFK or whoever the Democrats are comparing her to now. Oh, she's greater than FDR. And Trump supposedly is an orange-faced Hitler bigot. And yet they're about even right now. It doesn't look good. Now, Kerry fell into this trap. People pointed it out at the time. The way the Democrats spoke in 2004, John Kerry was supposedly running against the devil incarnate. And yet polls had them about even, and people began to notice. This is like, pre-home internet for a lot of people era. People began to notice, oh, that's a little bit screwy, because these people, why wouldn't he be like 20 points ahead if he's running against the Antichrist or something like that? Bush was supposedly the Antichrist. And I don't think he was smart enough to be the Antichrist. And Trump supposedly Adolf Hitler. He's a rather inclusive, capitalistic Adolf Hitler, but supposedly he's a Nazi and a bigot. I don't think so. I think you'll find he doesn't really give a crap what race you are, if you can benefit him in some way or the other. And if you're an ingrate or you're of no use to him, it doesn't matter if you have white skin. He's going to avoid you because he's in it for money and fame and ego. And that's why I also think, if he's elected, he'll do a tolerably good job. Because trying to feed his ego, he's getting older now. He's trying to put the final capstone on his legacy. He's been a billionaire. He's been a celebrity. He's been on TV. He's been all sorts of ads. He owns properties around the world. His face and his name are emblazoned everywhere. But there's one thing left that he hasn't done, and that's hold a significant political office. But Trump didn't want to just be, oh, well, I was mayor of New York. Oh, I was governor or something. No, he wants the presidency. And if he gets in there, what he will do is feed his ego by the adulation of the people, by being remembered as a great president. You can't do that if you're completely off-the-wall corrupt. You can't do that if you're a complete shyster or totally inept. I don't believe that he happens to be inept. I believe Hillary is. I think Hillary's more inept in some ways than she is corrupt. Now, I said this about Obama, remember. After the Snowden leaks, I said that the way that Obama's acting, he is either completely corrupt or utterly and totally inept and had no idea what was going on. He feigned ignorance, he went with ignorance. I guess I can accept that. Okay, I'll just accept that the President of the United States had no idea what the NSA was doing for several years. Okay. Seems kosher to me, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna hurl this criticism at anyone that deserves it. I can certainly aim it at Hillary. At this point, it's clear she's not quite all there, in a literal sense. As in, I'm not joking when I say there's something wrong with her. It may not be, strokes or Parkinson's. It doesn't need to be. Just the fact that she's a dumbass can suffice. Maybe she's just a total dumbass. If people thought of that, I think of it. I think it's probably true. So, she's falling apart. She's begun to lose steam. She's in danger of losing Wisconsin. It doesn't look good. Now, a couple weeks ago, when it looked like Trump might be on edge in Arizona, which doesn't appear to be the case anymore, but when he did, the media said, oh, is it all over? Will he drop out? Oh, he can retire in grace. Now Hillary's having to fight it out in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania at the same time. Is the media going to say, oh, when will Hillary Clinton drop out? She's such an embarrassment. She's going to lose reliably blue states that have been won by every Democrat for the last 5 election cycles. It's time for her to bow out. Here's the parachute we can give her to save face. Then I don't think that they will, but they should, by the same token. Because when it looked like Trump was having a total meltdown there, which I sort of chuckled at because he wasn't, they acted as though there was something so systemically wrong with his campaign that he'd never recover. That was never going to happen. It was never going to happen that he would completely sabotage his own campaign. He was setting up for the things that he's doing now. I expect him now to be more or less calm and statesmanlike for the rest of the election, with the exception of the first debate and through proxies. That is, he'll have other people go out and trash Hillary on his behalf. I expect he will probably win the election. It's not certain, but it's extremely likely. It may not seem like it to all of you now, but keep in mind, there's now only about a 2 or 3 point gap between the two of them. And Hillary appears not capable, really, of climbing anymore. It seems more like if Trump just avoids doing the wrong thing and acts like a moderate for a couple of months, he will slowly rise as Clinton slowly declines, especially with, and here's the ace up the sleeve of those who don't like Hillary, WikiLeaks has already promised at least one more damaging leak. And it's probably going to be a doozy because they're going to save the best for last. They're probably combing through it, making sure it's extra accessible, perfectly formatted, everything is cleaner than a whistle, so they can release it at a moment's notice. Who knows when that will be. I would put my bets on before the third debate. Possibly before the second. Let Trump hammer her for the first debate, then drop it a few days later when the analysis has died down. And then give people the goodies when she's already hurting, just give her a double whammy, and really sink her campaign. And then Trump would have more fodder for the second debate as well. If she loses the first 2 debates, she's basically done. Because she wouldn't have enough time, even if she did pretty well in the third debate, and it would be less likely at that point, she wouldn't have enough time to recover. By the time the third debate's over, we'll probably know who's going to win. Because I expect that in one direction or the other, the polling will have significantly protracted, and that the person will be ahead by 4 or 5 points, maybe a little bit less or more. And that there will no longer be enough time, barring some major calamity by whoever's ahead, for the underdog really to take it into the lead. Stranger things have happened, like, again, Reagan rising in the last, 2 weeks of polling before the election against Carter, but it's not particularly likely. I can't see something like that happening, probably again in our lifetimes. That's about all. Peace out.